Hello and welcome to Omar's Rickshaw Ride. We're your hosts, Omar and Zara. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, we are not in our usual regular space as we usually are. Zara's visiting family on the East Coast. I'm back here on the West Coast, still the best coast. Well, thank you all for joining us. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Omar's Rickshaw. And today's episode is brought to you by...
Well, for me, today's episode is brought to you by sisters because my sisters are the best. This time has been actually really nice. My parents are away. We have the house and it's been really nice to connect with them. I also, this is the first time that I met my dog nephew. So that's been really nice. His name is Romulus. He's really cute. And I actually love how Seema and the dog are getting along. He's really looking out for her. He really loves her.
Mm-hmm.
She really loves him too.
Did you watch the show with your sisters, your parents?
So I watched the show with one of my sisters, Fatih, and the last episode because Nana was far behind. So Fatih and I watched the episode together, and then I rewatched the last episode and the previous episodes with Nana.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually really good for me to go back and watch it again. There were a few things that kind of got clarified in my mind.
Are your parents watching the show at all or no?
No, they didn't want to wait week by week. So they just want to binge it one time. Mm-hmm. When they come back from Philadelphia, they're probably going to binge it. And I will probably rewatch it with them.
That'll be fun.
How are you doing?
Good. I watched the show since you were gone and you and Q were gone. Mm-hmm. I watched the show with my brother and my sister-in-law and niece and nephew, and that was fun. I'll get together and watch it on a weekday night. Different experience than with you and Kasima. Missing you all. But it was fun.
Yeah. Did they have any reactions like, faces or reactions or anxiety or curiosity?
Yeah. Our niece responds similar to our daughter, like wanting to, like trying to figure out what's happening, and kind of asking questions. And I think we were pausing it to answer the questions. I don't remember, but of course, I came home and watched it again this weekend.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, we have to rewatch it after we watch it with the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it was nice to just watch it with other family members. That was cool.
Yeah. So we've been talking about it a lot. I was telling my sisters that you were wondering if white people feel this way every time they watch a movie, because we were all like misty-eyed and we were like so excited for it. And it's the kind of representation that we don't ever get, let alone in like mainstream media globally. And it's the subtle things that the show captures that makes us feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's when for the South Asians that are in film and TV, we're often side characters, or like Riz Ahmed in Star Wars, right? Like he was a cargo pilot, kind of a minor role. I mean, a big part of the movie, but still a minor role. Like the shows and movies are still centered around folks that don't look like us, or definitely not in a large capacity, like where a whole community is featured. So it was powerful. It was moving. It was moving, and then for the makers to be so like in touch with like Desi culture, and the music throughout the series was really spot on. All the other touches, the artist, who made the posters, Shazil, just everything about the show. Yeah, we probably haven't seen before, and we'll never see in the immediate future, at least.
This was a really big deal. It is. And one of my sisters was asking, are we making too big a deal of this? And I do think that it is a really big deal. It's not that we're making too big of a deal of this. So you want to get into the last episode that we did?
Yeah, and then I think we can like respond globally, towards the end of this episode, or maybe even into a different episode altogether. But yeah, we start off with episode 6, the final episode. We start with, I believe, Agent Deaver, who is at the scene of the Circle Q explosion. And she starts off with this is what happens when the wrong people get powers. And her
Colleague.
colleague is like, what do you mean by wrong people? She
Yeah.
covers it really well by saying, oh, I was talking about kids.
Yeah.
But throughout this episode and this whole series, there's a thick layer of implicit bias that is being shown when it comes to Agent Beavers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they did a wonderful job of addressing the implicit bias.
Mm-hmm.
And when she walks into the mosque and she gives the description of who they're looking for, that's all the young men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that though this is a show and it's kind of lighthearted, and this is actually really real, this has happened to our communities where everybody is a suspect. Mm-hmm. Right? Or everybody has to be screened, or everybody has been looked for. You know what I mean? So I think that they did a really great job.
Then we what do we do? What happens next? We go to Kamala's family's house. They've just recently got back from Pakistan. This was a scene, as I noticed on my second watch, that there's a suitcase open. Her dad's asking for the pashmina, and it reminded me, like, I think younger with like my family, like when someone was coming back from Pakistan, like they would bring things for people, and for different kids, and there was like a divvying up of the stuff that came back. That was nice to see. And I love how she's really nervous about sharing her secret identity with her family.
Yeah.
And she even calls herself like Nightlight, right? Like
Light Girl.
Light Girl. Oh my gosh.
So meanwhile, we are also seeing Bruno and Kamran running from the DODC.
Mm-hmm. Through the subway.
Mm-hmm. So he's just trying to get him out of the city.
Also, I forget if that comes after, or no, the family scene is after. So her mom brings her outfit that she created. Really touching to see her tie it all in together, from the red fabric, from the red daggers, the blue vest. I don't know how she made it all together, but it looks really good.
It looks really good.
It's, of course, in one of those mini toffee boxes.
Well, because of the toffee box, what I thought was that Nani is also involved in this costume making, right? We know that it's tailored in Pakistan. It's coming from Pakistan, but that it's in one of Nani's boxes. So I liked that tie-in.
So she takes off after she gets her phone call from Nakia, and she finds out Bruno, like what happened at Bruno's shop. She runs across Jersey City. I really liked watching her run. Like, she's full of confidence. Like, she is kind of in her own body and and her own powers, and
right. And we were expecting this. Yeah, that her identity has been integrated. She has more self-confidence, and she has a sense of purpose, and she has a sense of I did something, So you can definitely see the pep in her step, and it's just so cute that she stops at the red light.
Yeah, that was cute.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question about her outfit. Not to jump ahead too much, but we know she and Biggins later on. Mm-hmm. Like, how does that fabric stretch?
Right, like that's a question that we've been asking and talking about too. Is that apparently Bruno is not involved in this because Bruno's dealing with his own thing in Kamran. Mm-hmm. But how did Nani and Muniba get this together to embiggen?
In the comics, wasn't it Bruno who creates her outfit? Using his tech know-how to make a fabric that stretches enough.
Yeah.
That was just a random thought I had about the outfit. Maybe they'll explain it later, maybe not. Who knows? Deaver's back in the masjid, in the mosque, with her shoes on, being rude as all heck. Mm-hmm. Muslims offer her cookies. Apparently they have a warrant this time because they take themselves around the masjid looking for Kamran. Mm-hmm. I love the Imam. What's his name? Sheikh Abdullah.
Sheikh Abdullah.
Yeah, with his Abraham Lincoln quote. Yeah. Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters. I loved him as a hot dog in that TikTok later on. But once again, Devers with her implicit biases with, calling his quote like from the Quran, but he's like, no, it's Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
I also like the advice that Sheikh Abdullah gives to Kamran as him and Bruno are leaving. Just because someone treats you as their enemy doesn't give you the right to make them yours.
Or treat them as yours.
Yeah. Yeah, dude is full of good advice. Solid advice.
Yeah.
He gave great advice to Kamala too, like a few episodes back.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the portrayal, Omar, of this old dude with a beard and shalwar kameez or whatever he wears, like his jalaba.
Yeah.
I just love the portrayal.
Yeah, it reminds me of Sheikh Yasser. Yeah, so we jump back to Kamran and Bruno. He is kind of losing it. I think when Kamala joins up with them and is hugging Bruno, and Kamran seems to just not be able to control himself.
Yeah.
And you can see like parts of the Noor dimension kind of outside of him, like floating around. And at the time I was wondering like what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Because
is Najma gonna reappear? Is that Noor dimension gonna open up? He needs to be contained somehow. What's that gonna look like?
Yeah. And it was very obvious that he was in pain. Yeah.
Yeah, from the explosion, possibly from before, and also just kind of adjusting to what's going on with his body. Also, yeah, they join up in the high school with Nakia. She makes up in Nakia. That was really touching. Also, I think Zoe helps Nakia later on kind of understand that, Kamala can tell people. Yeah.
Yeah, she can tell people when she's ready. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of short moving interactions. And I mean, I'm just really loving how they have held generational trauma, relationships, conflict, making up. Even Kamala and Nakia's short conversation about, are you mad at me? And at the end, she says, I messed up. They kind of talk it out, and then she owns up to what she did, which is keep Nakia out of the loop. And then the other aspect of it is that she can tell people when she's ready. So it just seemed really wholesome and bringing all the pieces of conflict negotiation and resolution together. Yeah, I think they have just done such a marvelous job of these difficult sort of like navigations.
Yeah, I think Zoe was talking. I was starting to see that maybe this was also a metaphor for like other parts of identities, that may be difficult to share, and people will share them when they're ready at their own time and pace.
Absolutely. And, I was just thinking that identity is not an easy topic to navigate in a show like this. And they did it really well, including some of these things. Even Zoe, in the beginning, we had certain assumptions about Zoe. Based off of those assumptions, I would have thought she will give up Kamala to the DODC. Even in the end, when she runs up to them, I'm like, oh gosh, like, did she just, give them up? But I think the show really shows complexity of who people are and like these subtle parts of identity that get lost in assumptions.
Right.
Yeah.
Back at the high school, the kids are getting ready. Her brother joins them somehow, even with DODC surrounding the school. Somehow he hops into a bathroom window. Very convenient. as a show is sometimes, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's good to see them. I love their chalkboard and how they animate that and turn it into what's going on. Kamran is also starting to get curious about his mom.
Yeah.
But Bruno tells her, she can't tell him.
Yeah, I think Bruno sees what's gonna happen because he's been with him through this, right? Bruno is the one who heard she wouldn't abandon me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he puts that two and two together and decides that he's gonna be really upset. And he already can't control his powers. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Which Bruno has seen that the most, that, this dude Kamran can't, he's losing it kind of on an emotional level, and also just that's impacting these powers. It's
Yeah.
So I can understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Diva gets a phone call from her boss, McCleary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who tells her to call off their
mission,
that operation that they're doing he understands it's going to be bad press. I get a vibe that he's just trying to do a good job, but I think Diva is just on another level. Later on, we see her get relieved of her duty. I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up elsewhere.
I think so. I think her, whatever she's carrying is larger than duty to the DODC. And I suspect also that she'll show up in a villain role somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I like the actor. I mean, she's we know her from Orange.
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah. I mean, I like her. I like her performance. She's an unlikable character. She really does a good job of that,
True.
Yeah,
yep.
She really does a good job of it. And she's rogue, and she has hate. So we are gonna see her again. That's just my, I that's my prediction.
Yeah. So DODC invades, and Coco Corina is back. I think we first heard that song in the first episode.
The first episode when she goes shopping with her mom.
Right.
Yeah.
And that switches directly to the Sweatshop Boys. Once again, a group we heard in the first episode. I like that. I like that switch. I like that callback to Sweatshop Boys. So we see more of their elaborate plan. Very elaborate, very adolescent, very in tune with, I guess,
youth culture of the day.
Right. Yeah. Whether it's using TikTok to amass a bunch of people outside, go viral really quickly, using the elephant toothpaste. Mark Rober would be proud. And being like kids. I think the most clever was having everyone wear the same outfit.
That was very clever. I also liked the fire extinguishers because of the visual effect they created in the show. I will say that it is really on point for the current youth culture. And I can actually imagine Gen Z doing something like this. It's not unrealistic. And a funny part was that when the elephant toothpaste happened, Seema was like, "Is that elephant toothpaste?"
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah, from the Mark Rober videos she's seen. It reminded me of like if Home Alone was done today, with this in a school, and then with the DODC types coming in. Very Home Alone like.
Right. Yeah, very, very endearing, also very resourceful of them. And Kamala is just good. This character is just good at making these plans, right? And they may not turn out exactly as she has planned them, but she does make these plans. I love the drawings, the chalkboard drawings. And
What did you think about the moment she was having with Kamran before getting interrupted by Bruno?
what do I think about that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was just so sweet, just like a little, kid moment, kid love moment, because they did have some kind of a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was sweet that they brought it back. I felt sad for Bruno having had to see that, though. What do you think?
Having had to see
That they were having a moment.
it, call back to when they were at the wedding, right? And Cameron walks in on her and Bruno having a moment
Remember that?
on the dance floor.
Oh, yeah.
Like he interrupts them, and I think at that point Bruno was trying to have a heart-to-heart.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of my favorite parts is this boy-girl stuff that they have put in, because it's really real and it's not heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really sweet. And these are real things that happen in a teenager's life, particularly like identity, friendship, all of these things can kind of getting meshed up in that.
Right.
It's cute.
What's not cute is all the kids getting arrested. Oh my gosh, Bruno gets a whack. But yeah, so they all get arrested. I really like the shot of like all their faces getting hit to the ground, like it was Nakia, Zoe, and Amr,
Mm-hmm.
all getting thrown face down.
Mm-hmm.
So they get put into a van. Kamran then figures out that his mother is gone, and he really starts to lose it. And he actually starts using his powers to attack the DODC folks, whereas Kamala uses hers very defensively.
Yeah, and I mean, he even spars with Kamala for a second.
Yeah.
When she grabs him with her big hand.
Mm-hmm.
He's mad and he's sad. We have 10 minutes left. We'll come back.
Yeah, we can just restart a new one, right?
Yeah, we'll start. Yeah, okay.
All right. So yeah, then we go outside, and he is one, we see like everyone has gathered, everyone from the school, the masjid, the South Asian community that they have. Everyone is angry. The police are there. DODC is there. It really seems like the opposite of what McCleary was wanting. So we know that the DODC after this is going to be in a bit of trouble. It's very much a public relations nightmare to be attacking kids at a high school. And yeah, so Kamran starts to lose it, and Kamala ends up trying to contain him. I forget if this is before or after we see her in Begin.
So this is after we see her in Begin.
Mm-hmm.
This is after. She begins when they do that little, the DODC do their little, what would you call it?
That little sound cannon?
Yeah, like the sound cannon.
Yeah.
And she begins, which I was so happy to see, because we have talked so much about her power set. And I was like, oh, there we go, Right. So that was really cool. And then she saves the community, or the people who are gathered there, from the car that Kamran throws or inadvertently throws or whatever, because it seems like he didn't want to hurt them, but it doesn't seem like he's like so with it in the moment. So she saves them, and at that time she goes to cocoon him and
her her saving everybody, like even the local cops notice, and even they're impressed, and they see this person wants to help people and save people, and that will play a role later on. But yeah, then she goes to try to contain him,
Yeah.
and also ends up helping him escape through some just punch in the ground. I imagine there's like an underground sewer.
Right. I do want to say that at this point, maybe we should talk about the phone call that she has made earlier in the episode.
Right. Yes, with
Kareem.
Kareem, the Red Dagger, and somehow they conveniently have a outpost at the harbor.
Well, he did kind of mention maybe they're a larger network than what we know, right? He did kind of mention the US and the US government. Maybe there's more to them than the little thing in Karachi, the Chinese restaurant in Karachi.
And the half dozen clandestine that they're supposedly after.
I guess.
Convenient. But I mean, that's what it is. That's part of their storytelling that they've created.
Yeah, and from that, I also, just from like him saying, oh, there may or may not be warrants out for my arrest. I actually like that part because it was like him showing off to her a little bit, how much of a badass. And then also maybe foreshadowing that there is some relationship there, or there are other people, because they don't say that they fight the clandestines. They say we protect humans from the threat of the unseen. Right. So that could mean more. So there may be a larger network there. That's how I thought about it. And so okay, that's cool. I just really like him. I like him. I want to see a whole Red Dagger series.
Hopefully there's a second season of Miss Marvel, and I imagine they'll be back, both those boys. So she punches that hole in the ground. He escapes, and the crowd then comes to her rescue. Her parents, I felt sad for her parents having to watch her get attacked and just being afraid for her safety. But even when the local police, the Jersey City PD, stand next to her and blockade her and protect her from DODC, that's a very powerful moment. She gets that phone call, and we know she's going to lose her job, at least at the bare minimum. And she runs away. Once again, I love watching her run through the sky like that. So then we're wrapping up the episode. We jumped to a bunch of TikToks. Did you recognize people? Yeah.
Counselor Wilson was there. Jivil Wilson was there.
Right.
The shoe thief was there.
Yeah.
Nakia's boyfriend was there. Like all of these people. Najaf, Sheikh Abdullah,
Ruby Auntie.
It was really cool.
Zoe, Nakia. That was cool. I was most surprised to see G. Willow Wilson. And also then of course I had to freeze the frame and then look it up, and that's not her real TikTok account, but whatever, it's all good. That was a nice. What do you think about her dad helping her figure out her name?
I really loved it. I love that it was her parents who helped her with the costume and then the name. And I particularly love the way that he helped her. He said, Kamal in Arabic means perfect. But in Urdu, it means this. And that was a really triumphant moment for me, because we are, Pakistani culture now can be so Arabized. And I think of it as having been colonized, and our indigenous culture or indigenous cultures, or even Urdu, which is a newer language, but it is our language being erased under Arabic. And I just love that. I love that, he said that. Yeah, it was great. I love the way that she got to it.
Right. And also what happens afterwards, we see Kamran arrive in Karachi, so we know he gets there safely. After her conversation with her dad, she jumps away, and we see her at the street light scene where she's sitting on the street light.
I love that.
Yeah, that was from the comics, and very iconic.
Yeah.
She meets back up with Bruno and Nakia
A week later,
right? We jump ahead a week, and they fight over who gets the fancy car. And then we have the big news that Bruno finds like a mutated gene.
Yeah, that was a bit confusing for me though.
It was to me, because in my head I'm still thinking, okay, well, she could still be an Inhuman, right. But then according to the interwebs, and I couldn't notice at the time because at my brother's house, like the sound wasn't up very high. But they're playing like some X-Men music, same as they did in Doctor Strange when is it Professor X?
Yeah, when he was in front of Illuminati or
Yeah, and dude gets wheeled out, and that same music gets played in the background. So it's pretty much, Kamala is a mutant, and this is like the first use of mutants in this MCU.
Yeah,
which is a big deal.
It is a big deal, but how is she a mutant? Her grandmother is like that too. Her great grandmother was like that too. So, I mean, it's not her who has mutated. There's a mutation then that's coming from somewhere. In which case, like, it's more like inhuman-like. I don't know. We'll find out.
Right,
but
yeah.
Interesting that they did that. When Bruno told her that there's a mutation in her genes, it brought me back to this moment in the comics that she had with old Logan, where they're talking about what she may be. And he suggests to her that she may be a mutant. That was the extent of their interaction there.
Well, there's a lot of just politics that went into this earlier on, like many, many years ago, when I think it was 20th Century Fox had like they owned all the rights to mutants. So Marvel couldn't make movies about them. Marvel couldn't make shows about mutants. So at that point, they told their comic book writers to focus on Inhumans and to make powered beings Inhumans. And so that push was sort of artificially created in the comic book world. Okay. And then also on TV through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? There were no mutants, but there was, several different Inhuman arcs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me that context. It makes a lot more sense now. So what has changed now that they're bringing this back into Marvel?
I mean, if all of that hadn't been there, maybe Sana and G. Willow Wilson would have written her as a mutant. Maybe, who knows? I can't really go back in time.
Yeah.
But here we are. So she's a mutant. At the same time, that it doesn't negate that there won't be any more Inhumans, just like we saw in Doctor Strange. There was the Inhuman King who was there. I think we will see more. And I think recently I just saw a rumor about Daisy Johnson, played by Chloe Bennett, is going to be in the MCU. Okay.
I mean, that makes sense. Oh, before we jump to the end of this show to the post credit, I picked something up when I watched the show again. In the first episode at AvengerCon, when Kamala walks onto stage for the cosplay contest, there is a Captain Marvel in the back who's going like this with their arms. It's Simu Liu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see any like spoilers about that or anybody talking about that Easter egg, but it is Simu Liu. I stopped, I went back, and like a couple of times, he's one of the Captain Marvels.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't looked it up. I will look it up. I will
Yeah.
look it up if anybody else has seen that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just to recap what our conversation about the mutant versus inhuman thing, I think Kamala wraps it up nicely when she says, "Whatever it is, it's just another label." So I'm more curious about their storytelling moving forward and what happens next. We see Bruno's going to go off to Caltech. He left a note in her locker, looking really sad, wistful, and she is going to be her neighborhood superhero. And I was just really thinking after watching the second time is that Peter Parker often, gets called like that your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But like he is very rarely ever in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think much of the first movie they were in DC, the second movie Europe.
Yeah.
The third movie was, sure, it was in New York as a backdrop.
Yeah.
So very little like in his own neighborhood, but I really do think like we've seen Kamala is really rooted in her community.
Yeah.
And that's what the show has really been about.
Yeah.
Like one is generational trauma that gets passed down from generations. And then also just the show is definitely about the community, the immigrant community that is needed to be tight-knit in order to survive. But then also the community that Kamala is creating for herself as she's growing up, as a young American kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really, it is really rooted in her neighborhood, even in the comics, right? She says, not in my city, or, Jersey City is my turf kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do really like that. And I love the highlighting the community, not just Pakistanis, not just one kind of immigrants, but just a large community of people coming together at the end, particularly even with the cops, which I felt a little tinge of like, why about, but they are making a point about people coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did a wonderful job.
So the credit scene shows both Karachi and Jersey City. That was nice.
That was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made sense early on to not do that. One, because the show wasn't in Karachi yet. So we didn't even know it was going to go there. I guess we could have figured looking at trailers. But yeah, it was great to see it all come together. And then, of course, the end credit scene with Captain Marvel. What do you think?
I mean, I was like squealing with joy because, again, we had talked about it in earlier episodes or in the lead up episode about her power set and how like I love her powers, and she's not shape shifting and any of that, and it was really fun to see that, her embiggening and then her shape shifting.
Yeah, but we don't know where she ends up, but we do know that Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, ends up in her bedroom.
Is it Captain Marvel who ends up in her bedroom, or she's shape shifting into Captain Marvel? How do we know?
Because she's looking around the room, whereas I think if she was somehow in Carol Danvers' body, she'd be looking at herself.
Oh my God, I completely got it wrong then.
I think it's easy to mix. I mean, those are like the two options. But no, I think something happens where
where is she?
Wherever Captain Marvel was. And then we wrap up that scene with Miss Marvel will be back in the Marvels. So we're gonna have to wait until whenever that movie comes out.
But it didn't seem to me like Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. It was Brie Larson, but there was something off about her. She seemed like Kamala to me.
Her uniform was different. Like
Yes,
colors had
but
changed on her uniform.
her confusion, the quintessential Kamala confusion was definitely there. Maybe it was the room and like seeing all the pictures of herself and
Mm-hmm.
it's like
And
messing
then
with my.
we see her run off, right? Like whereas like if that was Kamala and Carol Danvers' body, she would be like, oh no, no, but not run off. She would look at her own body and be like, oh no, no, no. But instead, Carol's looking around and saying, oh no, 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 and then running away like GTFO.
What have you read?
I haven't. I mean, I think that's mostly the consensus, but there was initially that that question.
Okay, I haven't seen any reactions. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't read anything about the last episode, particularly the end credit scene. For me, I had just stopped with, oh gosh, she's shapeshifting. Done.
No, she gets transported to wherever in the universe or realm or wherever that Captain Marvel was.
We'll see. I'm just still kind of like whacked out about Kree connections, about what the Bangle is doing with. What does the Bangle have to do with Carol Danvers? You know what I mean? If it does, does that mean it has something to do with the Kree, or does it have something to do with the Skrull? Like, just not understanding what's happening because, yeah. Anyway, so I will say though that there were a couple of things that I noticed in the show, in the earlier episode, and then I gaslit myself about it, and I was just like, "Oh no, no! Like this is not gonna." So in the one of the credit scenes, this is before Kamran got his powers. I saw a fist with green light, like it's one of the murals, a fist with a green light, and that's where it says Rickshaw. And I think it was episode 3 or something where I was just like, oh, I think he's gonna get powers and his light is gonna be green. And then I dismissed it, So we'll see. I actually don't know if that's the actual Carol Danvers. Also, I was right about the cousin stuff. Eric was wrong about that. In the beginning, they thought Rish was his cousin. Not Rish. Kamran was her cousin, Kamala's cousin. Remember when they first met and she was seeing the visions of Najma?
Yeah, we don't know that Ajma and Aisha weren't related to each other.
But people were thinking like that's the great grandmother. And we knew, like I knew that it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a funny way to end the show though, because I'm just like, oh, she's shape-shifting. Oh, yay, I love this power set.
Yeah, it looked a little, gosh, I don't want to say tacky. It didn't look tacky. It looked, she looked awkward, all stretched out. But in the comics, she does as well.
Yeah. I didn't think very much about it because she's supposed to look awkward, stretched out.
When she embiggens, it's definitely not to proportions.
Oh no. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Well, let's wrap it up. I think we should do another episode where we just kind of go over the whole series and just talk about themes and what we liked and do all that and talk about the impact of the show. But maybe that's it for this episode.
I think that's it for this
6.
episode. Sorry?
Yeah, just to reflect on episode 6.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm really curious about reception in Pakistan. I'm really curious about criticisms that people have and gripes that people have. And also, I want to see the positive impact that it has had on other people.
Sure.
I need a Miss Marvel group. Because we've talked plenty about this, my sisters and I, that maybe we're just like overly excited about this, but maybe other people are too,
hang out on Reddit. I mean, Reddit, there's a couple active subreddits out there. I think the Twitter verse is also a place where a lot of conversation happens, and As always, for everyone else that's out there, whether you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube, just hit us up at Twitter at Omar's Rickshaw. Hit us up in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, do all that. And we look forward to chopping it up again.
Next week, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Now that we have figured out how to talk to each other.
Using technology.
Using technology. From my parents' bedroom. All right.
All right, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we can still talk.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop the recording.